Welcome back to the Herbalist Hour. Today I'm excited to have on Mary Colvin. Welcome to the show, Mary.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Welcome to the Herbalist Hour. This is where community gather, merging the power of people and the flowers, the sweet and the bitter to the salty, the sour. Umami, it's time for the Herbalist Hour.
I was just on your show, Herbology Talk, so we get to flip the script here and learn more about you and what you've been up to. I know you just wrote the book, The Herbalist Guide, How to Build and Use Your Own Apothecary, which we'll definitely jump into. And, just for your information, Mary, this will be released after the book's already out. So
Okay, great.
we'll leave links to that for the podcast listener to go check that out. But why don't we kick things off, get to know Mary a little bit more. Mary, what were you like as a kiddo? Were you always into plants?
I was, and now I grew up in the era where they just kicked you outside and let you do what you wanted to do.
I remember
With
those days.
Gen Xer. Yeah, so we had these woods behind us and it was like a trail and there were some fields, but there was, some woods, and I spent a lot of my time out there. I also spent a lot of time in the gardens with my mom and with my grandparents. So my grandfather was big into gardening. He was came from Sicily, and then my grandmother from Kentucky. So I was always in the gardens, playing with the plants, sitting back in the woods. Yeah, I absolutely love them.
Were your grandparents growing herbs or kind of like veggies and stuff, or all the above?
A little bit of all of the above. Now, my grandfather would tell me stories that, back in the day when he was growing up, they didn't have doctors. And he was so excited when he heard that I was studying to become an herbalist. And he says, we had burdock and we had, what do you say? The lima beans and I don't even know how he used the lima beans, but he also said cayenne, and he would talk about peeling back the burdock stem,
Wow.
and eating that. And yeah, he was just really excited to talk about plants when he heard I was doing that.
That's so cool. Well, when did you start going from the kiddo in the garden to really just like, I'm going to do this as a career? When did you kind of really
Oh,
delve into the world of herbalism?
that's a good question. But there were so many years in between doing that.
Sure.
I went to college. I wanted to be a horticulturist or a botanist. That was my dream. Back in those days, that was before FAFSA, and they went by my
Right.
father's. They went by my father's income and said, "Oh, he can afford to pay for you to go to college," but then he goes to the bank and they're like, "No, you can't afford the payment." So it's like one or the other. I ended up getting a little bit of a scholarship and going to Ohio State University, which is the Agricultural Technical Institute, and that's in Worcester, Ohio. And I took floral design and marketing, because anything to do with plants I wanted to do. I almost took the greenhouse, but I like design also. So I took that. And I was one of those that in order to get the money to go to college, my dad had to co-sign for a loan and I had to make the payments every month. So I did that, worked full-time and went to school full-time at that time. I was 1/4 shy of graduating. I ran out of money basically, and, got back into real life and get married, have children. Time goes by.
Yep.
And then I had back issues. I was 36 years old and I started getting really bad back issues and also sciatica pain. And it went for a year or two. And of course, you're following everything the doctors tell you to do and everything the insurance wants you to do. And we ended up doing the physical therapy. And of course, they had me on Vicodin. And, that was for quite a while before they decided to do an MRI. And that's where they found out that I had degenerative disc and I had herniated disc in the L4, L5 area. And that's what was pushing up against the sciatica. So I went ahead and had the surgery, and that was just, I would never want to go through that again. It was 8 weeks of healing. It was a lot. And then afterwards, it did relieve the sciatica pain, but it created a different pain. And it was actually coming from my fascia. And this was a little bit before they realized all the nerve endings in the fascia too, you know, and they're discovering how much feeling you can get from that. The doctor told me I would be in pain the rest of my life. And I think I was just so fed up with the whole process. And I did not want to take Vicodin anymore. You know, I thought by doing the surgery, I would be over that and I could move on. And it wasn't like that. So I just told the doctor, no, thank you. And I just got up and left. And immediately I got home and I just started, I says, you know, I love plants and I know they can help. And I wanted to find a schooling that would help me with that. And back then there wasn't a whole lot of online or a lot of classes, period. And I'm in rural Ohio, so there wasn't any schools around me. So I did find the School of Natural Healing, and they allowed you to do correspondence and they allowed you to buy one class at a time. So I was able to do that. And I didn't even tell my husband at the time. I just, oh, by the way, I started taking some courses, and when we get the money, I'm going to buy one at a time. And I got a great husband. So he's like, you know, do what you need to do, you know, and I did. So every time I got extra money and I finished a course, I went ahead and purchased another one, and it worked for the family. And we ended up doing some classes where you figure out your own formulas. And I developed some formulas to help me, and they were great. You know, they didn't work immediate, but over time, you know, I was feeling better and better, and to the point where I can garden again and I can do the things that I wanted to do. So I realized that, you know what, this is important and I want to learn more, and I want to be able to teach people. So that's how I got into herbalism. It was a long time in between, you know, going to college, being a kiddo, to being 36 years old or right afterwards, and started learning.
How's your back pain now?
Oh, it's good. It's good.
Yeah.
I hate, you know, if I overdo it, you know, I can feel some, but I think, you know, being almost 54 years old, I'm going to have that too. So
For sure.
You know.
I'm finding that out too. Yeah, my knees are these days. Are you able to share? Do you recall what the formula you created
Yeah,
was?
I have, first it's called Bone and Body. I ended up making that one, and it has Solomon seal and calendula in that one, peppermint, lobelia, horsetail, black walnut leaves in it.
Is that a tincture?
It is. There's a tincture and there's an ointment. So I took them both. I did both the tincture internally and directly applied it in the area that it needed to be. And then there was another one that I created, and I called it a muscle rub, but that one is in my book actually. So this one is because the muscles were they were spasming so bad too afterwards. And so I needed relief on that. And so between the both, I had the release, you know, the relief of the muscle spasms. And then I also had where I was building the connective tissue and I was repairing it at the same time.
Well, herbs do work. You know, I always say we're not doctors and we don't play one on the internet. So of course, seek, you know, advice from a qualified healthcare practitioner, but still, yeah, that's so cool that you were able to heal yourself. And to this day, it's pretty manageable for you. I love hearing that. You said your husband is awesome and very understanding. I'm kind of curious though. I'm kind of curious though, like when you first really started delving into herbalism, did he kind of think it was a little weird, or how was that?
He knows I'm a little weird, so it's
totally.
It's okay. I've always been, and I said this to Jesse, you know, I'm always outside the box, or I think outside the box, you know, and he's used to that. But he's a good guy, you know, and he wanted to make me happy, and he knew that I was in pain for so long. And if this can help you, then by all means, you know.
Absolutely. I'm sure he's been benefited from you being an herbalist in numerous ways over the years as well.
Absolutely. Now he might complain about it at times and about the funky taste of some of them. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned what is that, Dr. Christopher's school?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
that's right.
Yeah.
Classic. Well, curious who some of your other mentors have been. I've always been fascinated to learn about folks' lineage and whatnot. So who else have you studied with?
Let's see. I took a lot. Went to the American Herbalist Guild, and followed, a lot of the webinars there at the free public webinars. And as a member, I did those too. So I would say there's a lot of people, from those that I learned from, but also Margie Flint was a huge aspect for me getting into clinical herbalism. And Matthew, she had a clinic in practice. I can't remember if it's called clinic in practice. It was a whole week. And I went from Ohio and I went over there to Marblehead, Massachusetts, and sat at her feet along with Matthew Wood and Kay Parent were there. And we were able to sit through some consultations. And it was fascinating to me, that especially, she does not diagnostic, but differential assessments and, reading the body. And he did pulse taking, and it was just so fascinating. And to watch the questions and how they came up with, the recommendations for that client, I knew right then and there that I was going to be a clinical herbalist. And so I went back a second time and studied from all of them too. So I did two separate ones with them. And then eventually I asked Margie if she would be my mentor, and she wouldn't give me an answer right away. She was busy, and she finally called me back and she said, yes, I would like to be your mentor. And so because of the distance, I was already seeing clients too at that time. And I've actually been seeing clients since in 2012, especially with, your family and friends. And I just didn't actually do it as a business and think about getting into the clinical training part of it, But anyway, we called over the phone and we talked about the case. I sent her the information in an email and she read over it and talked to me afterwards, and she gave me her thoughts, and, she wanted to ask me questions, and we did that for like 6 years.
Oh, wow. Are you still doing that to one degree or another?
No, we just call and talk. We're more friends now. Yeah. But if I do have a question, or if I come up with a situation that I'm not sure of, I will give her a call. Yeah. So she's great. And I've seen Matthew a couple other times, like at different symposiums and conferences that I've seen him at the Great Lakes. He was there that one year. And then both of the Leslies.
Okay.
Leslie Williams and Leslie Alexander are two other mentors of mine. And, between the three of those ladies, it's so different in how each one practices. And I was able to realize that I don't have to follow how one practices or how one works with their clients. I can develop what feels right to me and develop my own way of working with my clients. And, I love the fact that you can learn from different mentors and, and come up with your own practice and solidify it that way.
Absolutely. I love that they're affectionately known as the Leslies, and I know immediately who you're referring to. Yeah, I would say they're regulars at the Great Lakes Herb Fair, as are you. And you mentioned Jesse, presuming you're talking about Jesse Wolfharden earlier.
Yes.
Awesome. And we're referring to the Good Medicine Confluence. I'm getting all these events mixed up, which you'll be at this year. You were just on the Good Medicine Confluence roundtable with me last week, so that was super fun. Awesome. Well, you also recently started a podcast. Well, actually, I want to say it was August 2023 you started it.
Yes.
And it's called Herbology Talk. So, dear listener, if you want to go ahead and pause this, go subscribe to Herbology Talk on your podcast player of choice. But curious why you started that and what the listener can expect from your podcast.
Yeah, it kind of went along with writing the book. And I really decided at this point in time, I want to get more into training, and I wanted to be the person to help support and advise anybody wanting to learn herbalism. And so there's a lot of mentors out there that are for clinical herbalists, but how many of them actually sell mentoring packages or do mentoring for anybody, even if they're just getting into it? So I wanted to be there to kind of offer my advice in their training or on their path, what they should go do next. And so I did the book, obviously, for those reasons. But the podcast, I wanted to have one that targeted just training, and offer different resources for anybody, especially if they're training at home and studying at home. They can listen to different teachers and different resources, such as yourself. And I also have even other students on there, so they can learn from them and find out what works for them after listening. And, you know, it's a trial and error, but as the study is, you know, it's finding your people and finding the teachers that you want to study from. And so I thought Herbology Talk, we're going to talk about herbology, and which is the study of herbalism. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I had the honor of being a guest maybe a month or so ago. I'll leave a link to that in the podcast show notes. But you mentioned the book. We mentioned the book, The Herbalist Guide, How to Build and Use Your Own Apothecary. Yes. Kind of before we get into the details of the book, I'm just kind of curious how the writing process went for you. Was it enjoyable? Did it take a long time? How did that all work out for you?
Is 9 years a long time?
That's a wow.
Okay.
That's a
so
damn near a decade.
Let's just say that I started, the idea hit me 9 years ago. And I got memories from Facebook, and it says, well, I guess I'm writing a book, folks. And I said, it's been 9 years. Oh my gosh. But it wasn't a consistent writing. You know, you had an idea, you kind of put an outline together, and that I started writing, and then life gets in the way. I know my son was in a car accident when he was 17, and, you know, that took some time off there, and just everything happens. And so I get back to it when I really wanted to get back into it. And I decided to get the book proposal together, and I had to learn how to do that. So I did some research on how to do that. And then I had a client who it was actually Heidelberg professor in English. And I asked her if she would edit my book proposal. So we worked together on that. And then I had to learn how to write a query letter and, you know, find an agent. And, you know, once you found, which that's a whole experience in itself, and the time it takes, you know, and you don't hear back from them right away. It could be months and months. So it could take a year just to find an agent, and then the whole process of finding a publisher. And then they said, okay, here's the time you got to have it done. And then you get back to writing. And it's the whole process took probably 9 years. But yeah, it was a learning experience. And yeah.
How was it working with the publisher? Was that from memory, Skyhorse or something like that?
It's Skyhorse Publishing.
Wow. Yeah. All right, cool. How was that?
You did good.
Thanks.
You know, I was actually amazed. I had a really great editor there. And you know how you hear horror stories, you know, from some people working with publishers. And I was so afraid they were going to cut so much out of my book, you know, where it's not going to look like my book. My book started out at 80,000 words, and I had to cut it down to 65.
Okay,
and that was before I turned it in. So I originally had like some like quizzes in the book where you can kind of see what kind of information you retained after each of those. So I had to get rid of those, and I had to get rid of a larger botany section out of there. But other than that, they really didn't change a whole lot. They kept in all the information. And if there's something they did want to take out, I explained why I wanted it in there, and she agreed, and she says, okay. And so I really actually had a pleasant experience through this process.
So with those quizzes and the botany section, I suppose you theoretically could repurpose those for other projects of yours. Have you planned on doing that at all, or?
Yes, I have actually. So I know we're going to be talking about it later, but the herbalistmentor.com, that is a website that I'm using specifically for training and resources and mentorship. And I'm going to be doing a series of videos that are going to be demonstrating the exercises in the book.
Yeah.
So for those that are more visual learners, and then I was going to offer as a bonus the quizzes, so that they could, you know, as a side bonus if they wanted that. The botany section probably will become part of my course. There's going to be a course added in the near future. That is going to be an extended version that just going to keep going from my book. Gives you a little bit more information, some more herbs, a little the botany section, and that couldn't get in there before.
Yeah, I love when authors create courses based around their book. Like you said, sometimes people are visual learners. It's just nice to be like an addendum to the book. Also, I really think it's neat that you wanted to go to school for botany, back in the day, and you're still studying it. You're still fascinated by it, and you're creating content around it. So that's pretty awesome.
Absolutely. And then the other thing on that website too is I'm offering free memberships. So anybody can go there, and right now I've got 4 videos up that are like presentations, and they're going to teach different subjects in there, but one of them is navigating the study of herbalism, which I have been sending all my students to view that one right there before they proceed to continue their education, because it's a really good way to think about what is it you want to get out of your education, who do you want to learn from, what are your goals, what is your end goal in learning. So that's a great one for anybody to watch. I don't even care if you've never gotten into herbalism before, or it's beneficial for those who have been studying it for a while too. There's some other ones in there. I'm trying to think what else I had in there. I think one of them was fatigue and insomnia. So I talk about the different causes of fatigue and insomnia, but there's like 4 of them right now. There's going to be more. I'm going to add as I go along. So yeah, those are, and then I'll add some plant walk video series, I think, in there too. And yeah, just kind of help anybody who's especially studying at home.
Yeah, I just signed up earlier today before we jumped on the call, and I'm looking at the help in herbal training video. It looks like it's like a 45-minute long lesson. That's very in depth. And then just for the listener, I'm looking right now, and another one is help in herbal training, self-improvement for the herbalist, and then I see another one called self-improvement for the herbalist. Maybe it's like a 2-part series or something like that. Oh yeah, dealing with I don't think so. Dealing with fatigue, insomnia. Yep. Yeah. And then building your clientele.
There you go.
What is clinical herbalism? So awesome. That's a great free offering for the listener, and I'll be sure to leave that in the podcast show notes. But your fingers on the pulse. We'll get more into herbalistmentor.com later on in the conversation. Sticking to the book though for now. What would you say is the overall thesis of the book?
Yeah, it's really an at-home course.
Yeah.
I really think it is, just when you come down to it, it's going to give you hands-on training.
Yeah.
Because you can go to all these classes, you can read all these books, but until you get that experience is the best teacher. And, I wanted to help guide them here, because it can be very overwhelming learning about herbalism. And so I wanted a book, and I wanted a course that would step them through each subject. Here, learn this first, then you want to learn this next. And in between, I'm going to offer advice. And then there's exercises after each chapter that kind of goes a little more in depth, and you can go, stop the book and go do this, and then it's also going to help you build your apothecary at home. So if you follow every one of the exercises, by the end, you have created your own apothecary. But not only have you created it, you are going to know how to use it. You are going to be able to come up with your own, formulas at the end probably. And then you're going to be able to know who it's best for. But you would definitely know why those herbs are in that formula.
Yeah. Yeah, before we jumped on the call, I was listening to a podcast on YouTube with you featured in it. I want to say it was something like Witchy Wednesday, something like that. Did I get that right? Okay. And the host asked you, how would someone get into herbalism? And basically your answer was like, they should get my book, because it does sound like a great beginner's guide to really, just like you said, building your apothecary and everything in between. So that's a great answer. I read that there's 35 herbs that you cover in your book.
Yes.
And just kind of curious, it's kind of like asking herbalists what their favorite herb is. How did you, narrow it down to 35 herbs? Is that like they're ubiquitous everywhere? What was your thought process behind these herbs that are covered in the book?
I had someone else ask me that too. And I think I wanted to stick with herbs that I work with that are growing around me. But I wanted them to be common enough that they're accessible and you're able to purchase them. I didn't want to get a plant that you can't find anywhere. For the longest time, bee balm, you couldn't find. Monarda fistulosa, you couldn't find anywhere. And then also, you can find it now. But I wanted to make sure that people could purchase it if they don't have the ability to grow it or if they don't have it in their area. So I wanted to choose that, but I also wanted to base all the formulas. The first section of formulas contain just those 35 herbs. So you don't have to go purchase anything else in order to build those and make those herbal preparations. But the second herbal remedies that I have in there, I have other herbs that aren't in those 35 that you could take the time and research and understand that herb and know why it's in there before working with it. But I think accessibility
Totally
is it.
You mentioned bee balm, Monarda fistulosa, and I grew up in Oregon. I never really felt like I saw it very much, but then moving out here to the Midwest, it's everywhere, and I absolutely adore that plant. You're right. I don't think when I worked at Mountain Rose Herbs that we sold that plant.
No.
And you're saying it's available now, and I'm just kind of curious, where have you seen bee balm for sale?
I could have swore it was Mountain Rose Herbs.
Yeah,
that said
maybe it
they
is.
have it now. I could have swore it was. Yeah, I'd have
That's
to check
awesome.
in on that, but they probably had enough requests for it.
Okay.
Because it is such a great herb.
After this call, I'm gonna have to go check that out.
Yeah, definitely. I'm pretty sure. Now you're making me want to double
Well, we
check.
can look it up right now if we want. Let's
Yeah,
see.
for
Here we
sure.
go.
Trying to think, where did I find that?
Oh yeah, looks like they do.
Do they now? Okay, so I was right. All right.
Yep. Bee
I'm
balm
not
and
losing my
artificial.
mind.
Yeah, so maybe I'm losing my mind. Maybe we did sell it and I just never realized it. They sell hundreds of herbs. Okay,
This
so
is
all right.
recent. This was
Okay.
recent. Yeah.
I wonder what's happening with the popularity of bee balm. That's so cool.
And that's an interesting plant
Yeah.
for me. And I've told you before that I had a special connection with that plant because it was, again, now you said you saw it everywhere when you came to the Midwest, and I lived in my previous home. I lived there for 14 years, never once saw it. And I even had like 150 acres across the street.
Yeah.
And it had wetlands and it was like a park, and I never saw it there either. And one day I just looked up and there it was. And because I've been looking for it everywhere. I was like, oh my gosh, there it is. I was so excited. And this was like partly just right off the road. So I wanted to get some of the babies and move them over into my yard, and I grew them in my gardens. And then when we ended up moving, we had a natural gas pipeline go through the backyard, it was like a 36-inch diameter gas pipeline.
Wow.
I wasn't staying there. So yeah,
wow,
we moved. Yeah, I refused to stay within 300 feet of that. So
36 inches.
It was quite big.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was called the Nexus gas pipeline.
Okay.
So we found, and I don't know how I lucked out, but we found 9 acres in another town, and it had the woods, it had the river that going through it, and it had a prairie area. So it had all these different areas. It was perfect for what I needed. And my husband loved it too. So we built our house here. So I say I'm a caretaker of 9 acres, and I was worried because I didn't have time to move my bee balm. So
right.
I went back. It was early summer, and I went back in the woods there, and I'm looking at the woods like this, but anyway,
Sure.
I went back in the woods. Oh my gosh, the amount
Really
of Monarda fish, because it's kind of dappled light in between some of these woods, and it's just so much purple. It was just, there it was. Yeah, I just believed at that time that when it comes to you like that, that you're supposed to use it, you know, it was meant for you. And so I've worked a lot with bee balm, and I call it in the book sweet leaf because that's what Margie and that's what Matthew Wood call it, you know, so I learned it by listening to them. And the time I worked with it, gosh, I use it in just about everything. And yeah, it's one of my favorite herbs.
I have not heard the common name sweet leaf before. I
Haven't
love
you?
that though. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
I guess it's indigenous, the name, you know,
Okay.
came from indigenous. Yeah, so,
Sure.
but I don't know, that's what Margie and that's what Matthew called it, so that's what I
Yeah,
learned.
I keep waiting for a listener to call me out and be like, Mason, Monarda grows everywhere in Oregon. And I no one has said that yet, and maybe it does, but I remember the first time I saw it, it was August 2015. We went to the no, it was the Mother Earth News Fair, and that was in Wisconsin. And I just saw it just everywhere, and I just got so excited. I was like, what is this plant? Because I didn't really know it. And then, you know, I learned it was bee balm and just got super excited. And then, you know, lo and behold, moving here to Wisconsin just a couple of years ago, now it's everywhere, and I just adore that plant. You said you use it in a lot of different ways. Can you share some of the different ways you like to use it?
Yeah, I use it. I add it to my fire cider for sure.
Oh, great
yeah,
idea.
I love the taste that it adds to the fire cider, but and I use it in my cooking. I love drinking a cup of tea, a cup of, you know, a warm infusion an hour before bedtime. It's not necessarily sedating, but it's relaxing. It's so relaxing when I've had a stressful day. I can literally feel my shoulders just. Yeah. And when I look at the plant, I see the petals go in all directions. And I immediately thought about your nervous system, how it goes and connects to everything. So I thought of it first and foremost as a nervous system, as a nervine.
Little doctrine of signatures there.
Yeah, little doctrine of signatures. Nice.
I love the idea for the fire cider. I'm presuming you're using the leaf for that as opposed to like the flowers.
I actually use both the flower and the leaf. I love both of them.
Okay. Yeah,
a little pungency in there.
We did exactly. Yeah. We did a video with Kyle Denton. We went on an herb walk with him, and that was one of the plants he talked about. And I want to say he called it like something like a pizza spice because it's got like that nice flavor to it.
Very pungent, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so 35 herbs in the book. Bee balm is one of them, correct?
Absolutely.
How about you were also telling me pre-call that another plant you're fond of is motherwort. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, that's another one that I think came to me. But this one came to me in my dreams when I was living at that previous house too. And I was just dreaming of harvesting it because it was across the street. And at that time I woke up and I said, oh, I need to go harvest that herb. You know, it is time. And I immediately went over there when I got up and I harvested it. I put it in my jar, filled it with alcohol, and, you know, came back. So I had my tincture going, and then I grabbed some to dry. And not 30 minutes later, a tractor came by and mowed everything down. And I was like, huh. Well, all right.
Mary to the rescue.
So, yeah, well, I just, again, felt that was another one that says you need to work with me. And I did. And, you know, I work a lot with that with my clients too that are needing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you kind of look at the energetics of motherwort?
Well, it's definitely a warming herb, and it's dry. And, you know, but it's also nice heart tonic, and there's so many different applications. And Menagogue, it's, you know, working with the nervine, and it can help to balance, you know, the hormones. And so there's many different types of applications to be used with it.
Were you saying that it was just kind of growing weedy over there in the field, or because that's another one where I've had to intentionally grow it? Really?
Well, all it takes is one. You know, and then it's a mint, and I think the seeds just shoot everywhere. You know, because you find babies all over, and I found that out when I grew it for the first time, and you know, the next year there was babies galore everywhere. So you're definitely, all you need is one plant.
So you're thinking I could find some motherwort in my neck of the woods too?
I don't see why not.
Yeah, we're definitely we're planning on growing it this year, so.
And a lot of times
I
find it a lot of times on edges of the woods, you know, side of the road. You find them at, you know, if you have like trails, sometimes you see them in the sunnier parts of the trails too.
Sure.
Mhm.
All right. Well, let's move on to the third and final plant that we'll chat about. And motherwort, bee balm are both in the book. Is violet also in the book?
Oh yeah.
Awesome. Let's
Yeah.
hear about your love of violet.
Uh, it's heart medicine for sure. Um, I will go out there and I will sit down because it's all over on this land.
Hmm.
And it's in the woods, it's in the prairie areas, and there's so many that I can literally just sit down and just pick my share.
Mm.
And I love the gentle fragrance of it. And I collect both the flowers and the leaves. And when I'm dry, I dry them out of direct sunlight and, in a cooler area. And the purple, it stays purple. And it's just beautiful. The flower does. It's just beautiful in the jar, throughout the year. And I can open the jar and I can still smell that fragrance. And that's another nervine I love. I love it too it's more of a moistening. It's a cooling and moistening herb, and especially with the respiratory system and the lymph system. I use it a lot with that. I drink a lot of the infusion, and I do have it in tincture form. I make an oil also that I use as lymph massage oil.
That's cool.
I like also. And I even used that one time when I broke out in hives. So urticaria, I broke out, there were some hives like around my mouth, and I don't know, I still to this day don't know what caused it because it never happened again. But I immediately just went over and got the violet oil and rubbed it on it, and it went down. So definitely anti-inflammatory, and it's also, I think a lot of it had to do with stress at the time. I think it's very possible. But yeah, there's so many different applications of violet, and I make sure I collect enough to make my oil, to make my tincture, and make enough to dry throughout. So I have it throughout the rest of the year.
You mentioned you drink it in infusions. Do you kind of look at that as like a nourishing herbal infusion?
I do. Not only nourishing, but just support of the nervous system. And especially in the drying in the winter too. I love, because you have that moistening capability. And yeah.
That's one I really want to get into. And I know I've said this on the podcast before, but yeah. All right. So Mary, next time we talk, ask me if I've made a nourishing herbal infusion.
I will.
Hold me accountable because I need to get on that. I'm just so drawn to the plant now that I live in Wisconsin. It's the Wisconsin state flower, and they're just everywhere here. I see them popping up in our yard now. So very exciting stuff.
A lot of people make syrup with it, but I don't really go for making the syrup as much as I want the medicinal applications, and
absolutely,
and a lot of times I will combine it in formulas to balance out a formula with its energetics. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm stoked to give it a try. I think I've had it when I worked at Mountain Rose Herbs again, because I used to get just bags and bags of herbs when I worked there. But it would be nice to actually just make my own, harvest my own, make my own. So that's what I'm going to do when the time is right. We're recording right now on April 2nd, 2024. So any other aspects you'd like to talk about the book before we kind of move on?
You want to talk about the book? Let's see. So I have it in sections, like I was talking about, talking about getting into herbalism. And, I definitely in the introduction, let everybody know how I got into it. And then I start with like the medicinal actions. And then we also talk about energetics, which I think is lacking in a lot of beginner herbal books. But I really feel that every herbalist, even beginner herbalists, need to at least understand the concept. They don't have to be proficient in it, but they need to at least understand that concept. And so that's why I added that into the book. But then I talked about combining both the energetics with the medicinal actions. So I wanted to kind of get away from the thought when they're learning herbalism that here's this herb for this condition. That's not how herbalism works. You want to give an herb for an individual, or for the tissue states, and the actions that it's needed. So I kind of talk about how you want to combine the herbs and medicinal actions and energetics, and how you choose an herb. So that's one of them in there too. There's some resources in the book, but really those hands-on exercises, there's one after each herb. So you get a chance to work with every single herb that's in there. And you have a chance to try different herbal preparations with them too. And I even talk about, let's compare. Hey, go get some skullcap, make a fresh tincture, then make a dried one. What difference do you feel? You know, I want you to come up with your own, not what somebody else says. Somebody else says it's best used when fresh. Really, is it? Or, you know, is that what you came up with? And so I kind of get them thinking a little bit outside the box.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that it almost sounds like you have homework assignments after each herb that they're learning about, and then they really get
like
to,
I say, it's a course in a way, you know, at home, but yeah.
it'll be really cool after the book's been around for a while, and you know, someone comes up to you at the Good Medicine Confluence is like, oh, you know, I did all of these activities and you really like changed my life. You changed how I see herbalism, plants, and the natural world.
That would be amazing, because I really feel that it should be, everybody should know some, even the basics of herbalism, because you really don't know what the future holds and, you know, when it might come in handy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, where would you like to send folks to purchase the book?
Well, we have Skyhorse Publishing you can go to. It's on Amazon. It's at Barnes and Noble. If you don't like Amazon, Target is having it. I think there's a lot of different bookstores that are going to have it too. But yeah, if you like purchasing online, you can go to Amazon or Barnes and Noble. And like I said, Skyhorse Publishing has some indies that you can purchase from also.
Awesome. So we mentioned these events a couple times: Great Lakes Herb Fair, Good Medicine Confluence. Are you going to have a table at those events where you're going to sell your book, maybe sign them and stuff?
Yeah.
Awesome.
And so in May, I will be at the Midwest Women's Herbal Conference in Wisconsin, and I have a table there. And then in July for the Good Medicine Confluence, I'll have a table there. And I also have one on teaching at the Great Lakes Herb Fair again this year. So I'll have a table there too. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Are you teaching at the Midwest Women's Conference this year?
Yes, I am. I'm talking about invasive plants, and then I'll be doing a plant walk there too.
Very cool. 3 events in 1 year. That's yeah, you'll be all over. The life of a newly published author.
Yeah. What we won't do, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Well, so we chatted a little bit about this earlier. It's your herbalist mentorship program. And just for the listener, it's herbalistmentor.com. And there's the free courses. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you got going on there, and who's a good person that maybe you want to check that out? Who are you trying to target with this website?
I'm targeting anybody who's a student of herbalism, and it doesn't matter what level you're at. So there's something for everyone, I think. Like I mentioned, mentorship packages. I wanted to be that mentor that can offer, you know, my advice and, you know, let somebody have some time with me to ask whatever they need to ask and help them on their way with their learning journey. And then of course we'll have the free membership. I've been offering, you know, adding some different ones there. I'll have that course later on, as well as some different video series that you can purchase as well.
So I know this is a huge topic, but you seem like a good person to ask. What would you say the steps to becoming a clinical herbalist are? You kind of break it down.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely need to know the basics of herbalism to get started with. And then you can go to the American Herbalist Guild. Actually, they have some of their criteria for becoming a registered herbalist. And that's a really good thing to go by to be a clinical herbalist, because that's what a registered herbalist is. You know, it's a clinical herbalist that has the training and the experience. So kind of follow those, but you definitely need anatomy, physiology, some biochemistry would be good too. Nutritional therapy. I went to Portland Community College. Oh, cool. And KP Khalsa. So that's another mentor. I guess I could say KP Khalsa taught that course, and that was a 2-year also. And there was a lot of information, and he kind of talked about Ayurvedic as well as you know, Chinese medicine too. You got a little bit of touch of that too, along with understanding nutrition. So all of that you need to kind of get a basics in, and it's definitely helpful if you learn botany, you know, and understand the identification as well. And, you know, understanding not only the body, but also the diseases and, how they work and how they're imbalanced in the body. And then you're going to need some mentorship and some, clinical hours as well. But following that American Herbalist Guild, that criteria is a good start.
Hey, Mary, where does someone find a herbalist mentor?
An herbalist mentor? Maybe go to herbalistmentor.com. But, for those that are in clinical herbalism too, that want a mentor for clinical herbalism, I do offer case reviews.
Okay.
I do offer where they can sit in on my consultations and through the follow-ups also. And I also mentor in applying to be a registered herbalist for the American Herbalist Guild, if that's something that you want to do, which isn't something that every clinical herbalist needs to do. But, if that's your choice, then I can help you with that application.
Okay, so they get the foundations in herbalism, they learn botany, they learn anatomy and physiology, all the above. What does it take from, like, say, someone who wants to make that leap to just starting their practice? What kind of advice would you give to someone they're ready to become this clinical herbalist, but they're not feeling confident yet?
Well, that's when you want to reach out to a mentor.
For sure.
For sure.
That's what they're for, yeah.
Yeah, that's what they're there for, and they can help guide you
Yeah.
into some additional studying time and differential assessments. That's another area that you want to learn something about too. But they can help you with that. And I always think it's beneficial too if they write down everything that they've taken too and keep track of that. And that's always beneficial for later on down the line too, for if you want to show your, mentors as well.
How was that transition for you when you first started becoming a clinical herbalist? Was it easy? Was it difficult?
I would say it was easier because we talked about how wonderful my husband is.
Right. It helps to have a supportive husband.
He let them come in our house and,
Right.
not let them, but, he was okay with taking off and go doing his thing and go playing volleyball or something while I had a client there, and
Sure.
Or taking the kids to the beach or something, to kind of get them out of my hair so I could sit down with the client. And but I think the biggest advice I can give you is if time is an issue, you don't know how you're going to working full time and seeing clients, is just set some time aside.
Yeah.
Say, okay, Saturdays are the days I'm going to do that. And you could go around, you can watch that building your clientele in the free membership, and you could start taking advantage of marketing yourself and then go from there.
What percentage of your business these days is clinical herbalism? So like a third, or?
I would say, about a third, roughly.
So you got like the education, the author, the clinical herbalism,
the podcast, and the writing. I'm still writing too, and keeping up the websites, both of them, and
juggling a lot. And actually, do you want to shout out your blog? I want to say it's something Mark. Am I remember that right?
Mary's Mark. It's Mary's Mark on ancestral herbology. I was doing a little play on words there with.
I like that. That's cool. So you're still active on your blog and everything?
Yeah, I'm not as update as I like to be once a month, but I try to keep. I think I put one up there recently. Okay. But there's a lot of articles there that they can look through. Yeah.
So you're from Ohio, correct?
Yes, I'm from Castelia, Ohio.
Okay. Curious how you've seen the Ohio herb scene evolve over the years.
In the area that I'm in, it's really modern medicine, a lot of modern medicine. And I think over the years that I've been here, because before people were like, they would look at you like, oh, geez, she's an herbalist,
What is that?
Yeah, what the heck? She's weird. But then more and more people are getting in the natural scene. And then you see more health food stores popping up, and there's the essential oils. I think that interested a lot of people, even though that's not the same as herbalism, exactly. Wow. In the natural side. So I've seen more there, but of course watching over the years, all the schools that pop up and all the new herbalists and, the increase in the number of herbalists. And of course, then there's social media, right? That's flooded, with a lot of different herbalists. And and so I've seen it grow for sure.
How close are you to the Ohio Herb Center?
Okay, I'm Midwestern, so I'm gonna say in time. It's probably a couple hours.
Okay. That's the thing, isn't it? You don't do by miles. Yeah. I like that. Yeah. Awesome. Well, that's a place I still definitely want to check out. And you interviewed someone from the Ohio Herb Center on your podcast.
Amanda
right?
Ferguson. Yeah.
That's right. Okay. Yep. I've emailed with her before.
Yeah,
very
she's
cool.
Great.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, what's next for you, Mary? You wrote a book now. Are you going to write another book, or what are you going to do?
I am going to write another book. Yeah. I've been writing for Plant Healer magazine too.
Nice.
I have a quarterly column there called Healing the Way Nature Intended. So I do like writing.
Yeah.
I do enjoy it.
Awesome. Yeah. Any other projects you want to shout out that's coming up, or are you just really developing herbalistmentor.com?
That's kind of where my focus is going. Is developing more in that and keeping up with the mentorship packages and writing and the clients and the conferences. Yeah.
Love it.
No, never bored.
Well, awesome. This has been a lot of fun getting to know you more, Mary. Any closing thoughts or anything before we wrap up and get out of here?
I can't think of any other than if you need help, in your studies and your journey into herbalism, need a little extra direction or advice, feel free to contact me and go to herbalistmentor.com.
Absolutely. So you do have that website. And then I know you have another one. Is it Ancestral Herbology?
Yes, it is.
Awesome. We'll leave links, of course, as I keep saying over and over again in the show. Ancestral Herbology. Definitely check out Herbology Talk on your podcast player of choice. And thank you once again, Mary, for coming on the show. Thanks, y'all, for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thanks a lot, Mason. Take care.
Thanks, Mary. You too. Thanks so much for watching today's episode of the Herbalist Hour. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want more great herbal content, be sure to subscribe to our HerbRally YouTube channel. If you enjoy these Herbalist Hour episodes and you'd like to join us live, you can do so by becoming an HerbRally Schoolhouse member. Learn more at herbally.com/schoolhouse. And if you want to get your first 30 days for free, use coupon code YouTube30 at checkout. So our HerbRally Schoolhouse members get access to exclusive video classes, monographs, and a lot more herbal community discounts, along with joining these live Herbalist Hour interviews. So one more time, herbally.com/schoolhouse, enter coupon code YouTube30 at checkout to get your first 30 days for free. All right, we'll see you in the next episode, and take care.